Look at this buck. Oh my God.
I'm talking a bullseye. A bush buck with a bow is so hard.
This is the biggest deer of my life. So big. Oh my God.
I got wires. Oh,
Easily my biggest whitetail.
what a
ever.
giant bull.
Thanks, babe.
No problem, babe. Welcome back to Bowmar Bowhunting. I'm Josh Bowmar, and we are doing another Bowmar breakdown. And this week, we're going to break down my free-ranging Cape buffalo hunt with a bow. Honestly, by far one of my top bow hunts of my life. And even as a little kid, this is what I dreamt about. And behind me, I actually have my setup that I killed the Cape buffalo with. I had my 85-pound bow here and a 900 grain arrow. This thing is insanely huge. And I think I want to start this breakdown in this story before we dive into the hunt itself, kind of preparing for this hunt. Because I had been saving for this hunt. I mean, this was not going to be a cheap hunt, especially doing it free ranging where we were doing it in Mozambique, which was in the middle of nowhere. I wanted to be as prepared as possible. So what I did was I went to the junkyard and got a hood off of a car. Because I'm like, okay, if I can shoot through a hood on a car, I probably can shoot through a Cape buffalo's rib. At least that's what I was thinking. So I went and got a car hood. We brought it out here and I was testing and building a bunch of different arrows. So with a Cape buffalo, it's like you're shooting into a cinder block because their ribs like overlap. They're extremely tough and hard because they fight with these big, huge bosses, and so they cover themselves in mud to keep the bugs off. So not only do you have hide that's like this thick, it's also rough and scarred up from all the fighting, but you also have layers of mud. So it's extremely difficult to have the right setup to kill a Cape buffalo with a bow. You can't just go out there with any setup and get it done. So I wanted to be very well prepared. And how I did that, obviously I had my Hoyt here cranked to 85 pounds, and then I had a 900 grain arrow with two 75 grain inserts with a 250 grain two blade single bevel broadhead and a 4-fletch system here. So crazy heavy arrow, but it had high kinetic energy. So I had this build in mind. This is a Dangerous Game Easton arrow, which is designed exactly for this type of hunt. And so we tuned the bow, got it all ready to go, and it blew right through that car hood. So I knew right then that I had the right setup. Now I just had to get as accurate as possible out to 70, 80 yards. Obviously, I didn't want to shoot that far, but if I could shoot one that 50 to 60, I'd be super happy because, as you guys know, the Cape buffalo's nickname is Black Death, and that's because it kills more hunters than any other species of big game animals. And that's because their first line of defense is to charge and stomp, which is not great. And they grind you into a pulp with those big heavy bosses. And these are crazy heavy animals, so not something you want to make a bad shot on or get super close. So let's dive into this hunt and let's get started. Oh my gosh, yes guys, getting into this camp was so beyond incredible. You know, we had this little tiny airplane that we had to load all of our equipment in. Now we had a lot of extra equipment because of all the camera equipment. And so the pilot was a little nervous about getting everything in, which made me nervous, obviously. So we had to throw some gear aside and leave stuff back because it was going to make the plane too heavy. But we got off the ground, and I'm all smiles right here for sure because I'm going on a bucket list hunt of mine, a true dream of mine. We flew literally across the coast in Mozambique, and we were waving at villagers and everything else, and they were having so much fun seeing the plane fly by, you know, because it doesn't happen very often, you know, when they see a plane like this. And it was pretty cool to see all the coastal people. And then we flew actually across the inland, as you can see right here, and we saw tribes that lived off the coast, which was really cool. And so we flew, I don't even know how long. I think it was literally 150 miles at least, which is a long ways in a little tiny plane like this. As we landed the plane, I was just happy to be alive. You know, they greeted us with great hospitality. There was a lot of people there to help us with all of our stuff and get set up in camp. And camp was honestly surprisingly really nice. We were staying in these like little stone huts, which was pretty cool. And honestly, it was comfortable. I don't want to say that it was uncomfortable by any means, because it really wasn't. So we got into camp and got our bow set up, and I was just so thankful that nothing got damaged on the airplane ride over, because obviously we're all alone out here. I mean, as you saw with the fly-in, there's not a bow shop anywhere nearby. So we were getting our bows shooting. They were shooting great. We were excited, and we were off to hunt. And so with us getting things ready to roll, I wanted to make sure my broadheads and everything were dialed in. So I actually got to use my cameraman's leg as a tester, and you could see on this setup right here, that is a sharp broadhead. It was literally shaving his leg bald, and so I knew that setup was going to be perfect. And that was actually this arrow right here with this exact broadhead that you see in that video, and it's still razor sharp. I bet you I could shave myself now, and it went through a Cape buffalo. Like, this is the broadhead, or the arrow that did kill that thing. It's pretty wild, but still pretty cool. Well, let's fast forward through this. Oh yes, I want to stop here with these crazy machines. So these machines were insane. Like, we get out here and they're like tanks. If you've ever seen Star Wars, it's literally just like the machines you see on Star Wars. Pretty sure they were the same machines. And they float and they drive through anything. You cannot get these things stuck. And the reason we had to use them is because we had to drive a vehicle literally an hour deep into the bush, and then we had to take these things for hours and hours deeper into the marsh to where the buffalo were living. And so we drove around literally the entire first day for hours and hours and hours. I have no idea how many miles, and we never even saw a single Cape buffalo. So I thought it was going to be a little bit easier than this, truthfully. I was like, oh, we can drive this thing around until we spot one? Cool. That's not how it went down. So when we got back to camp, we were really wore out from that first day, honestly, because we got off, we stalked some other animals, we tried to get a few warthogs and whatnot, and it's very wet and very draining being in the sun that long. And we decided to hunt actually the next day right around camp there. So that's what we did. We just hunted around camp in the woods and in the jungles, and I actually ended up shooting my very first Nyala bull, which was a beautiful bull, a huge bull. I made a great 40-yard shot on him. I think it was like 44, and hit him head on, and the rest was history. And Sarah actually got her Nyala bull on the same day, which is actually really cool because then we both got a double of a lifetime on 2 wild free-ranging Nyalas, which, as you guys know, if you've ever been to Africa, it is an amazing tasting animal. It was a treat for the whole camp. Oh, I gotta stop right here. Okay, so I gotta explain these white birds. So white birds typically are where the Cape buffalo are. A lot of people think the birds are eating the bugs off the back, but the reality is when the Cape buffaloes are walking through the grass, they kick up grasshoppers and other bugs that the birds like to eat. So anytime you ever see white birds, there's typically Cape buffalo nearby. So we're pretty far away, and we can see these white birds. So we're like, okay, we know there's Cape buffalo up there. So we're walking, and we come to a river, and not a small river, mind you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how are we going to get across? He's like, listen, if we try to drive those machines we had across the river, it's going to scare the buffalo. The machines were way far back behind us because we had already gotten off of them. He's like, we're going to have to wade across this river. And these rivers are full of man-eating crocodiles. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. I'm like, okay. I was like, this hunt's already dangerous enough with Cape buffalo because they want to charge you and stomp you into the ground. Now we're adding crocodiles into the mix. I was like, I'm here for the adventure. Let's do it.
Where these reeds are, it's all flowing water underneath of that. And so crocodiles love to live in these reeds. Then they'll come out right here and sun themselves. So we're kind of walking along the edge of this. So we got to keep our eyes out for crocodiles because one can snatch us. But
so this river was actually about 12 feet deep, but it had this layer of what was called floating grass that you could walk across, and if you walked fast enough and didn't stop, you could keep going and moving forward. But if you stopped, you'd fall through the grass into the current that's underneath, which is where all the crocodiles are swimming around. So I was obviously nervous. Everyone was nervous to cross this, and I literally feel like I'm in a movie and I'm about to get taken out. And I'm walking across, I'm holding my bow up, just trying not to get all the equipment wet. Everything else just stays wet through this entire time. You just wear tennis shoes because you're gonna get wet. No boot will keep you dry. And so I'm getting up to my chest in water, and we're just walking across. And we get to the other side, and I kid you not, as soon as we get to the bank, we're all taking deep breaths. We're all excited that no one got eaten by a crocodile. And I kid you not, literally right where we just were, not even 20 yards away, the weeds start going like this. And a crocodile had swam right behind us, right through the weeds, right across our trail. We literally missed him by 30 seconds at most. So we were all counting our blessings at that moment and trying to refocus because we had buffalo right out in front of us. And so as we're kind of working our way through the grass, we're going to be putting in a stalk on these buffalo. Well, there was this really tall grass beside us that we could hear buffalo if they were walking in there, but you wouldn't know if there were buffalo in there if they were just bedded down. So we're kind of moving along this grass edge, and we get behind this little clump of grass, and we're just kind of watching the buffalo out in front of us, waiting. And then we hear the grass right beside us shuffling. And then Poon, our guide, he's like, this isn't good, guys. And he's like looking, and we just see the grass moving towards us. And we're like, okay, everyone lay down. So we all literally lay on the ground, and a whole herd of buffalo step out literally 20 yards away from us. And we're laying on our back. And then it was Big Mama right in front with a cap, and she's walking right in front of us, and she's literally 15 yards at most. And we're like, oh gosh, and we're all being perfectly still, praying to God she doesn't see us. Well, she spots us, and so does the other parts of the herd. And so we're super nervous at this point, because then she turns and takes steps forward and gets literally 8 steps from us. So Poon has got his rifle right here, and then she starts getting agitated, like she's doing a little mock charge and steps. So then Poon starts going with his gun like this to pull the attention to him. He's got the big gun, and he's trying to keep her attention. So she turns right to him, and all of us are literally just dead inside. We're like so stone dead, like, because we're just thinking this could be it. I mean, we're in a very compromising position where we have the crocodile infested river to our back. We got crazy buffalo right in front of us, and they know we're here. This is a bad situation. And it felt like an eternity went by as these buffalo are staring at us. And they say they stare through your soul. I know what that means, because they were literally staring right at us, and they were not afraid at all. They just were like, I don't know if I want to kill you or not. And that is such a weird feeling when a creature looks at you like that. And we're sitting there, and we're just waiting, and it's an eternity goes by. And finally, they turn and trot away. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And I look back, and Jeff's legs all shaking, like going crazy, our cameraman. And Poon's like, woo, that was a close one, you know? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so intense. And you know what? I signed up for this. And I was so happy I got to experience that without any real physical harm, because it was really exciting. I can look back and tell that story to my kids, and it's going to be such a cool part of this story in this hunt. And I'm glad I got to share it with you guys, because it doesn't seem that scary because we were filming it with a GoPro, but they were right on top of us. And they call Cape Buffalo Black Death for a reason, because they kill a lot of people. And I felt like I was going to be next in line in that moment. But lucky for us, I didn't get trampled to death. I know some of you guys out there might be haters and wish that I did, but I didn't. So we moved on, and the hunt continued. Hey guys, I want to take a quick second and tell you about this monster giveaway we're doing on our YouTube channel. We are giving away a 6-day, 7-animal African safari hunt to one lucky subscriber. Literally a hunt of a lifetime, a true dream hunt on our dime. We're gonna give to one of you guys. We're even gonna cover travel costs. So make sure to enter. And to enter is pretty easy. All you gotta do is subscribe to our YouTube channel, like and comment on all of our most recent videos and videos to come. When we hit 200,000 subscribers, we are going to pick that very lucky winner. So let's get back to this video. Well, that day ended. We decided the very next morning we were going to get up early and head right back to the same area where we saw those buffalo. And we got to the same area, and as luck would have it, we spotted the white birds again. And we knew the Cape Buffalo were close by. And this was exciting for us, because obviously we were so close the day before that I was so excited to be in the area again and maybe just get a second chance at a big buffalo. And as luck would have it, the buffalo had fed down in between these two gullies, making it a perfect spot to spot and stalk. So with this tall grass, we were able to literally act like warthogs and just sneak on our ground. They could hear us, but they thought we were warthogs. So we would kept getting inching closer and closer, And we just stopped like we were feeding like a warthog, and we just kept working our way through the grass. And then once we got within 50 yards, they kind of started feeding towards us, and we were like, oh my gosh, it is game on. And so I'm just watching them through the grass. It's thick. You guys can kind of tell with this, like it's thick and hard to kind of see. But I saw this buffalo, and he had these huge big bosses that were all scarred up and this big frame. I was like, yes. I was like, that's got to be my buffalo. And he's like, oh, it's a big one. It's a big one. And he moves into position at 45 yards. And my heart is pounding. And I know if I screw this up, this could result in serious injury or even death. I'd never been under so much stress with a bow in my hand in my entire life. And so I knew I had to make a perfect shot or I could die. So it was one of those situations where I was like, okay, make sure it's perfect. Don't screw this up. And so I go full draw and I stand up out of the tall grass, exposing me to all the buffalo, but they haven't seen me yet. And all I can do is channel my focus onto the big bull that I was focused on. And I was like, okay, here we go. I draw back and I anchored my nose button, which was just a huge deal because adrenaline was flowing through my body like it's never done before. No deer, nothing was as intense as this. And that thing poked me right in my nose. And I was like, oh, thorn. And I was like, okay, focus. And everything was lined up perfect. And he was 44 yards. And I anchored my pen right on his shoulder. And literally right where his heart is. It cut loose and just hit him perfect. He had no idea what happened. So as soon as my arrow hits him, I sink down in the grass again. I'm looking through the grass. Well, he runs out to about 55 and stops. And I'm like, and Poon's like, get another arrow. So I grab another arrow, I knock it, I draw back, I come out of the grass, you know, like a leopard, and I cut it loose, and it hammers him perfect right in the heart again. And you see this shot really well, actually, and you can just see it hitting. And he buckles and breaks it off, and he runs out there to about 63 yards, and he's in the herd now. But I can tell which one he was because he was so big. And so I'm watching him, and I'm focused on him, and both shots were perfect. First shot was top of the heart. Second shot was right through the middle of the heart. And I'm using big arrows, big cutting diameter arrows. These animals are just massive. So I wanted to make sure I got him. I was confident I got him, but I had an opportunity to shoot a third time. So I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to do it again. 63 yards. I crank my sight to 63. I draw back and I anchor at 63 and I shoot. And it hits him perfect. Right behind the shoulder. Double lungs. He never even flinched. It literally just hits like a board and it goes all the way up to the fletchings, and he just takes one step and it just snaps it like a twig. Literally this arrow. I mean, this thing feels like it's made of concrete and he snaps it like it's a twig. And I don't think I show this part of the video, but he just stands there, and it seems like an eternity, but all this is happening in under 60 seconds. And so I grab another arrow, draw back, and I shoot him for a fourth time. All perfect shots, and that arrow almost hit the same hole as the shot before. And at this point, all the buffalo are on alert. They take off running. He takes off running, and he only made it a few feet and was dead within 90 seconds, which is exactly what I hoped for with a Cape buffalo hunt. This hunt, I mean, literally couldn't have went more perfect. I was so grateful to kill such a big, huge beast so quickly and ethically, and that was important to me. I didn't want to wound him, because if you wound a Cape buffalo, you pretty much can say, get the coffin ready, because if I start tracking him, he's going to turn and charge me. So it's important you make a perfect shot, and I did, and I was so happy about that, and it was an exciting moment for everyone. Now, we can't bring the meat home from Africa, which is actually one of my favorite parts about Africa, because we get to donate the meat to all the locals, which was a huge component of this, which we'll get to in a minute, because there's more to the hunt that I want to share. But let's keep going through this hunt. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. So Donnie and Sarah were on a mound really far away and watching the whole thing go down from a distance. So they were probably 500 yards away watching everything happen from a distance. And so whenever they saw me, I could see them, and I went like this. And they knew I got my Cape buffalo. And I have the most supportive wife in the world. She was there the whole time watching this whole thing. She wanted to be there. She was there. Donnie was there. And we got to share this whole experience with each other, which was amazing for me and everything I could have hoped for in a bucket list hunt. And they all come up, and the first thing everyone says is just wow. Because, I mean, these animals are so huge. I mean, I walk up to this thing and it's like a Volkswagen laying on its side. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I killed this thing with a bow. It was crazy. And yet so awesome all at the same time. And it's such a wide variety of emotions that went through with this, because you're talking about a bucket list hunt since I was a little kid, watching Jim Shockey on TV, you know, shoot Cape buffalo with a muzzleloader and everything. It was just amazing. I always wanted to bow hunt them. And so for me to finally have my dream come true was really a magnificent experience. And I highly encourage everyone to do it. If you can, save your money. It's worth the hunt. But let's keep going on this hunt here. The penetration, actually, I want to stop on the penetration, because when we walked up on him and he's laying there on his side, now I'm 6'3", 218 pounds, and this thing makes me look like I'm a little toddler. That, my small shirts usually make me look like a toddler. Hey, don't judge me. But anyway, you get the idea when he's laying on his side just how big this thing really is. But the cool part is you see my arrow on the pass-through side. So I got penetration all the way through an entire Cape buffalo with my setup, which told me all my preparation paid off. So let's dive back to the rest of this hunt. So I shot this thing first thing in the morning, and it was going to be a long day getting this Cape buffalo out, because we were not going to let any of it go to waste. That's the one thing that's amazing about Africa, is nothing goes to waste there. We're talking the intestines, I mean, everything is used. It's pretty amazing. So it literally, I'm just watching this right now as we're talking, and it was so incredible. It took the entire crew just to flip this thing over and move it. I mean, it was insane on how heavy this sucker was. But everyone was super excited to get the meat, and so everybody went to work with hatchets. I mean, it was kind of like a scene off a scary movie. I mean, there's like hatchets going and blood everywhere. It was kind of graphic, but at the same time, it's like, we're dealing with an animal that is ginormous. We're talking monstrous. So we're butchering this animal in the field, and we're getting all the meat. We're carrying the meat back to our machine, I guess is what you call it. I don't even know what you call those things. It's like Star Wars machines, what I like to call it. But yeah, so we're carrying all the meat after meat, load after load, and getting everything out. And when we were all done, this was such a cool experience. We had ribs left. There's hardly any meat on a Cape buffalo's ribs, because it's just rib on top of rib on top of rib. So we had some ribs, and some of the organ meat that was damaged from the bloodshot and everything else, we left. We left there, and I did something that was super cool. I actually set up a GoPro on the meat that was left just to see how fast it would disappear. And because there were buzzards literally everywhere, I'm talking thousands of them, and it's so cool just to see the circle of life at this moment. So we just see them all landing in trees as we're harvesting all this meat and everything off this animal. And so we pull the vehicle away, just literally not even 100 yards. And I have a GoPro in the meat itself, and all these buzzards come down and just woof and swarm it. Literally, like if you've ever seen a piranha, like on the movies, like piranhas going crazy on a fish that's bleeding. That's what it was like with this Cape buffalo, but with birds. I couldn't believe it. They were going nuts. And I'm just thinking this whole time, this GoPro's getting some epic footage, and sure enough it was. But I couldn't believe how much these birds were eating and how fast. We're talking about an entire Cape buffalo rib cage, hips, all this stuff that was left. All the meat and everything that was left on the bones, there wasn't a ton, but we're talking about a Cape buffalo here. They cleared up all the ribs, guts, everything that was left in 5 minutes. It was bone dry. Literally all the meat picked from every orifice of that animal was picked in 5 minutes. I couldn't believe it. I literally could barely lift a rib cage, and then I go down there, I could pick the whole skeleton up with my hands because it was that empty. Pretty incredible, honestly. So that was it for the day. We were on our way back, you know, and we didn't get back till dark. If that gives you perspective on how long it took to butcher the animal. You know, on video, it doesn't really showcase the timeline very well and how long it takes to do the things that we're doing, but it took a long time and then a long drive. But it was totally worth it, and I tell you, it was a celebratory day in the village that we were staying in, because now the whole village was going to get to eat. So the next day, we were just beyond exhausted from the Cape Buffalo hunt. So we decided to take the day and give back to the community. So we took all the meat that we harvested from the Cape Buffalo, kept just a little bit for ourselves to have a few meals, but then we donated the entire thing to the local village. And everyone was excited because there were going to be full bellies all through the village tonight. And it was one of those amazing experiences for my wife and I, just giving back to those people. It was truly an amazing experience, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. On top of donating over 1,000 meals worth of meat to the village, Sarah and I wanted to give back even more. So we donated a year's supply of school supplies, toothbrushes, and books, and all kinds of things to this local school that was in the village, just to give thanks for letting us come and hunt in the land that they live. And this hunt literally couldn't have been capped off any better. You know, we were able to harvest a lot of amazing animals on this trip. Sarah killed a world record water buck. I was able to help out the village and take out one of the pesky baboons that were taking over one of the gardens that they were planting. And I was able to harvest a massive Cape buffalo, which we donated all this meat to them. We got warthogs. Sarah got a sable. I mean, we're talking an unbelievable trip in Mozambique. And we gave all the meat back to the locals, and they were beyond excited in addition to receiving all the school supplies. Well, the first part of the day we got to do the meat drop, but the second part of the day we got to do something super cool, and that was join the anti-poaching team in their helicopters and fly around and see where we had been hunting. This was so cool to see this from the view, and I know you guys have watched this hunt, haven't seen this part of this because it really didn't fit in the video, but I get to talk about it now, which is so cool. So we were flying around after the hunt, looking at all the different buffalo, the birds, all the zebras, I mean everything. It was like literally a scene from planet Earth. It was so cool watching these animals all work and co-mingle in the same ecosystem. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of this hunt. I know it's one of my favorites. I know you guys are enjoying it on YouTube. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on bell notifications so you're always tuned into our channel. You know, Sarah and I really appreciate you guys watching all of our content. It takes a lot of effort to create all this, and we just are happy that you enjoyed. So we'll see you in the next video.